Alright, I wasn't going to make this video, but here I am making it. Because I haven't really made many videos this week. I've been focusing a lot on our podcast. Justin, Logan, and I have a podcast, and we're trying to do it weekly, trying to get it up every single weekend. Got 3 in the bag so far, so far so good. Hopefully we can keep this thing going. Really enjoying doing it. Like, feels like my new calling. I love doing the podcasting, and been putting so much thought and energy into ideas for that I haven't been making videos as often. But I promise the videos are not going to stop. I'm going to keep doing them. It's my individual kind of outlet, creative outlet, is doing these videos for you guys. For myself, really. I don't want to be that guy who's like, oh, I do this all for you. It's not for you, it's for me. I enjoy doing it. It's fun for me. It's a stress reliever. It allows me to be creative and talk about things that, maybe my kids aren't old enough to talk about, or my wife isn't that interested in talking about. It gives me some place to go and spill my thoughts. So, anyway, I want to make this video because I want to talk about something I found this week. So far, my favorite podcast of all time. And I talked about this a little bit on the podcast last week, so you can go check that out if you want to, but if not, I'm going to talk about it right here. I went down a rabbit hole. It started really a couple years ago when I started listening to the Joe Rogan podcast, which led me to listen to Kevin Smith's pop culture podcast called Fat Man on Batman, which led me to Kevin Smith's other podcast, which led me to Tell 'em Steve Dave, which led me to this show that I'm going to tell you about. And it's called the What Say You podcast. And it's Sal and Brian Quinn, Sal and Q, from Impractical Jokers. And 2013, I think the end of 2013, they started their own podcast. And this was before Impractical Jokers was even that big. Like, it was just getting started. I think they were in their 2nd season. And for me, it is the perfect podcast. And I'm not saying it's inspired my podcast, because I actually have been wanting to start a podcast for the past year and just now got around to it. And I just discovered the What Say You podcast 2 weeks ago. So it definitely didn't inspire me to do the podcast, but I will say that it has now awoken in me something to where I'm willing to do different things on my podcast. I'm willing to try different things on a podcast. Maybe talk about things that you wouldn't associate with a podcast and kind of just go all over the place. This thing has been the best for me personally. And I know a lot of people like specific types of podcasts, but me, this one fits me so perfectly because it's not just hyper focused on one thing. It's literally just 2 guys hanging out and talking shit. And you can tell they're like best friends. Like, it's fantastic. They do things like they created a character, which I love, Nugget. And I want you to go check it out. If you're not already a fan of the What Say You podcast, please search it out. They've got, it's up on their website, whatsayyoupodcast.com, and it's also up on Stitcher, and somebody has put them all on YouTube, and that's where I found them. Best podcast by far I've ever listened to. And I love Kevin Smith, and I love Brian Johnson, Walt Flanagan, and I love Joe Rogan. But this thing suits me perfectly. It's like the perfect mixture of comedy and just broing out. And it made me a bigger fan. I was already a fan of Impractical Jokers, and I had no idea that they had this podcast in their background. But it has made me even more of a fan of the Impractical Jokers, and it's made me really appreciate these guys' personalities. I'm totally geeking out here over them. But here's the thing: they haven't made a new episode in over a year. Let me just tell you how much I love this podcast. I discovered it 2 weeks ago. They have 73 episodes. Okay? They went really strong for like a year and a half, and then it got really sporadic, and then they did 2 in 2017. And I have, I think, about 15 left to listen to. I've listened to well over 50 episodes of this 1+ hour podcast in the past 2 weeks. I have been absolutely obsessed with it. Like, once I listened to the first one, I couldn't stop. I just kept going. And as you know, I'm a truck driver, so I have a lot of free time. You know, I wouldn't probably be able to do it otherwise. But I've found myself listening to it in every other moment as well. Like a trip to the grocery store in the car, while I'm working out. I can't stop listening to it. But I'm saddened because I know that I'm nearing the end. And there's no more new content from What Say You. I think we need to start some sort of petition or some sort of like something that lets these guys know how important the What Say You podcast is to us. This is for people who are already fans of it. And just get it out there and like get them to come back to the table and just do, even if it's once a month, bring this podcast back. It's the best thing, like I said, podcast-wise, I've ever listened to. And I cannot get enough. And sadly, I know it's coming to an end soon. Yeah, if you haven't listened to it, just look it up on YouTube. Look it up right here on YouTube, the What Say You podcast. There'll probably be some episodes down below in the suggested videos if you clicked on this video. So, watch it. Let me know what you think. If you're already a fan, tell me what your favorite episodes were. I couldn't pick a favorite episode, but like, I just love that it's all over the place. They created a character called Nugget. They talked about everything from like comic books to American history, just anything that comes to mind. These guys just bullshit for an hour, and it's so funny because that is the type of podcast I wanted to have, like just two guys talking shit for an hour, you know, and just going back and forth, really with no laid out plan of what there was to talk about, and then I find this one that I enjoy more than any I've ever, and it's exactly what I have always wanted to do with a podcast. Like, I found somebody who's already done it, and it's fucking beautiful. But yeah, let me know if you're a fan of it. Let me know some of your favorite episodes, some of your favorite moments from it. Another thing that they did was they decided basically on a whim that they were going to watch all of the Fast and the Furious movies and break them down, like an episode for each one. And that was some of the greatest content I've ever listened to in my life. But just that idea that you can do anything with a podcast, like anything. You can watch a movie and push pause throughout the film to add your thoughts to the podcast. You can create characters. You can do, I mean, it just opened my eyes, kind of broadened my, ideas of what a podcast could be. And I'm thankful that I found it, and I'm trying to find some other people that are still obsessed with this thing and have always wanted it to come back as well, so we can maybe get this thing back on the air. Anyway, let me know your favorite episodes. If you haven't listened to it, go listen to one episode. Pick any episode. One of my favorites is I Have Your Pants. Absolute. Sal Volcano is one of the best storytellers like I've ever heard. Like, he's such a good storyteller, and that's another reason why I love this podcast. I love storytellers. But yeah, go listen to one episode, come back to this video, and let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you are already hooked as well. That's it. Thank you for watching. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you like stuff like this, where I just basically talk about things that I enjoy. Can be anything from pop culture to comic books to movies to TV shows. I just talk about anything. So if you're into that sort of thing, subscribe for more. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.